The call came at 11:43 p.m., past her bedtime. Past my patience. "Grandpa!" She was crying, not loud. Not hysterical, controlled, the way I taught her. They locked me in the basement. Said I'm not leaving till morning. My hand didn't shake. It never does. Then a different voice slid into the line, young, amused, drunk on its own stupidity. "Relax, old man. She's keeping us entertained. Stay home." A click. Silence. I stood in the dark kitchen, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. They thought I was just a grandfather. They didn't know I had commanded men in places that don't exist on maps. They didn't know retirement doesn't erase instinct. And they didn't know my granddaughter doesn't cry without a plan. I didn't call the police. I called ghosts. 6 men answered. No questions, just coordinates. By 1:12 a.m., we were inside the house. No shouting, no chaos. Precision. 6 of them tied up, 0 resistance. And my granddaughter? She walked out of that basement carrying the spare zip ties. Calm, eyes dry. She had mapped the house weeks ago. Knew who hosted the parties. Knew who sold the pills. Knew who recorded girls when they thought no one was watching. She led the mission. I simply provided the cavalry. But in the morning, the betrayal wasn't in that basement. It was at my breakfast table. My daughter sat across from me, stirring her coffee like it held secrets at the bottom. "You overreacted," she said. "They're just kids. Just kids." The phrase scraped against bone. Her eyes didn't ask what happened. They didn't thank me. They calculated. That was when I saw it. The detachment, the distance, and the lie. She already knew about the party. Knew about the basement. Knew about the boy whose father funds half the city council. She had told my granddaughter to go. Network, she'd said. Build connections. I watched her sip her coffee like none of it mattered. Like her own daughter had been collateral. That was the first crack. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I have learned something about betrayal. It rarely stands alone. It nests. So I began quietly. Phone records first. My daughter isn't careful. She assumes loyalty is permanent. That blood makes you blind. It doesn't. There were calls. Late-night ones. Repeated numbers tied to one name. Daniel Harper. City councilman. Married. Ambitious. I let that sit. Then financial statements. Small transfers. Regular. Not enough to notice unless you're looking. I was looking. Property records came next. A townhouse in her name. Purchased 6 months ago. Paid in full. She told me she was struggling. Needed help with tuition for my granddaughter's private school. I had wired money. To a woman who was already funded. By a man who sent boys to entertain girls in basements. I stayed calm. At dinner, I asked ordinary questions. How's work? Tiring, she sighed. How's Daniel? She froze for half a second. Not long, but long enough.
Who?
I nodded slowly. Let her have the lie. My granddaughter watched everything. She's perceptive. Too perceptive for her age. Later that night, she sat beside me on the porch. She knew, she whispered. I didn't ask how. She always knows. She said if I embarrassed them, it would ruin everything. Everything. Meaning Daniel's campaign. Meaning the townhouse. Meaning the illusion. My granddaughter wasn't a victim last night. She was bait. And her mother set the trap. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not rage. Not yet. Just clarity. The DNA test was almost unnecessary. But I needed certainty. Call it habit. Call it cruelty. I swabbed my granddaughter's cheek under the excuse of a school project. Sent it off quietly. I already knew the timeline. The affair began 16 years ago. The math didn't lie. 2 weeks later, the envelope arrived. I opened it alone. Probability of paternity, 0%. I stared at the number for a long time, not because I was shocked, but because it confirmed what my instincts had been whispering. She isn't mine. Not by blood. Daniel Harper is her father. The councilman. The married man. The one whose son hosted the basement party. Everything converged into one grotesque circle. That evening, I placed the report on the dining table. No speech, no accusation, just paper. My daughter read it once. Then again, her hands trembled. You had no right, she breathed. I almost smiled. No right? She broke then. Tears, apologies, explanations about loneliness, about mistakes, about how she planned to tell me one day. Daniel had promised to leave his wife. He hadn't. He had promised protection. He delivered a basement. I stayed seated, calm. I already sent copies, I said quietly. To his wife, and to the ethics committee. Her face drained of color. You wouldn't. I did. Not revenge. Correction. By midnight, Daniel's campaign website was down. By morning, his wife had moved out. By noon, reporters were calling. My daughter's phone rang nonstop. She looked at me like I had detonated her life. I hadn't. She had. I simply removed the walls she was hiding behind. My granddaughter came downstairs that afternoon. She stood between us, silent. Strong. I handed her the house keys. The townhouse is in foreclosure, I said without looking at my daughter. Funds were misallocated. Her mouth opened in horror. Yes, I had seen to that as well. Every transaction tied neatly to misuse of campaign money. Precision. My granddaughter squeezed my hand. Not because I was her grandfather, but because I was the only one who never traded her safety for status. That night, my daughter packed a suitcase. No screaming, no dramatic exits, just the sound of a zipper closing on a life built on deception. She paused at the door. You destroyed me. I met her eyes. No, I stopped protecting you. The door shut. Silence returned to the house. I sat alone in the living room long after my granddaughter went to bed. The house felt different, cleaner. I had lost a daughter. I had gained the truth. Blood is biology. Loyalty is choice. In the morning, I made breakfast for a girl who shares none of my DNA and all of my discipline. She doesn't need my name. She needs my example. And I have never failed a mission.